Hey everybody, it's Brian. Welcome back to the Lean by Doing podcast. This week, I'm going to dig into my origin story and how I came across lean and how it's transformed my life and my business. So back in May of 2024, I was invited by Mazak to come to Japan to see their operations. And I was like, free trip to Japan? Yeah, sign me up. I'm all in. So off I went to Japan, and I had very weird expectations. I thought there would be a lot of culture shock. I had never been outside of North America. So for me, I was nervous. And when I got there, the first thing that I noticed when I got off the plane was visual control. Although I didn't know what visual control was, but I saw it everywhere. It was in the airport, it was on the airplanes, it was in the taxi cab, it was on the bus, it was in the hotel. Everywhere you went, there was visual control. And it was so easy. And I can remember not knowing how to speak Japanese, but understanding where and how to get through the airport and where and how to get to the bus and where and how to get around at the hotel. So obviously visual control works even for somebody who has no clue what it is. So if you have ever flown to Japan, it is a long, long ways. Now, for me, it was about 16 hours, but I feel like it's about 16 hours for everybody. And it was the longest plane ride of my entire life. But fortunately, I was able to upgrade to business class, so I wasn't scrunched like this back in coach for all that time. Now, when I got to Japan, I was so tired, and we just knew we had to stay awake. So that's what we did, and I crawled onto the back of the tour bus as they took us to our hotel room in Nagoya. And I remember having the best egg salad sandwich of my entire life. And as I'm driving and eating this sandwich, I look over to my right down off this bridge, and what do I see? A Costco. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess Japan has Costcos. My anxiety level started to come down as I realized that maybe this culture shock wasn't going to be as bad as I was expecting. Now, if you've ever heard anyone talk about staying in hotels in Japan, they will talk about how small the rooms are and the beds are. Now, I'm 6'1" and a couple 100 pounds. I'm a big dude. And I was like, are my feet going to hang off the bed or what? I will tell you the hotel rooms are pretty small. However, they aren't to the point where you're like going to hit your head on everything and your feet aren't hanging off the bed. So that was another thing that I had a lot of anxiety about, and that was quickly ended. So our first day in Japan, we were required to wear suits, and that was a little weird for me. I don't wear a lot of suits. However, I had a few, so I got it all dressed up, and off we went to tour Mazak's first facility. The first facility we visited, I felt like I was completely getting dunked on. This place was insane. The entire showroom, they had cut all of the tubing out with their tube lasers. And so they were really just showing off. And I mean, it was incredible. But one thing I was starting to notice is that everything was clean. Everywhere you looked, everything was in order. There wasn't trash on the streets. There weren't trash cans to take the trash on the streets. It was just clean. And even inside Mazak, everywhere you looked, the place had been 3S'd, although I didn't know what 3S'ing was. And what I started to see as we started to go like from place to place is lean manufacturing. However, I didn't know it was lean manufacturing because I had never experienced lean manufacturing. And when someone would say to me, hey, we're going to do lean, to me, that meant like, get rid of your work in progress. Just have a little bit less, you know what I mean? Tighten up, do like just-in-time stuff, you know? I don't need this until I need it, and I'm just going to make it when I need it. So some of those principles I understood, but I didn't know what lean was. And as we toured these factories, and every single factory was the same, it was incredible. Everything was well thought out. Everything was flowing. And I just was like in awe of what was happening. And in my mind, I'm thinking, there's absolutely no way we can do this, right? There's no way I can bring this back to the United States and implement this process. It just looked so foreign to me. And I felt like, you know what? They have a different culture. In the United States, we litter everywhere. We have trash cans everywhere. It's overflowing with trash. And nobody really cares. Nobody really cares about anything. It's crazy. But in Japan, it's different. Now, in Japan, if you walk around with a water bottle and you empty your water bottle, there are no trash receptacles to throw these away at. So you just get stuck carrying it everywhere you go. Well, now I know the lean principles. I'm not going to burden somebody else with my trash. So they're not expecting anyone to be burdened by their trash. So the only time that you're able to get rid of your trash is if you walk into your hotel room and they take your trash from you at that point. So day after day, we traveled to a different Mazak plant around Nagoya. And it was insane. It was the craziest thing. We weren't allowed to take a lot of pictures, so that was a little tricky. You're seeing all these ideas that you want to be like, ooh, I want a picture of that. I want a picture of that. And you see like Gemba boards, and you're seeing visual control, and you're seeing check gauges, and everything is organized, and everything's in its place, and everything is clean. And you're just like, I just want to show this to my team. But they're like, limiting you on what you can take for photos. So as you can imagine, we're all walking around the factories covering for each other, and we're all pulling out our phones, and we're like, and as we're trying to capture all these amazing tools that they're using. And we had no idea what we were doing. We had no idea what we were looking at, but we knew that that looked better than what we were doing at home. And that was something that we would like to show our team back at home as well. So throughout the rest of the week, as we traveled through Japan, everywhere you looked, you saw lean thinking. And that could have been at the store, at the gas station, or in another factory. And it was just piling on top of me that there was just no way that I was going to be able to do this. We do not have the culture in the United States to build this. Nobody cares enough in the United States to do what they're doing. And that's what makes it unique. And that's why Japan is an anomaly in itself. And there's no way that it can be done. And it was so much. It was so much. My head was spinning. At this point, I come home and I walk into my engineering office. I sit down and I look at them with a big sigh and I say, there's no way we can freaking do this. Everything I saw, it just made my head hurt. And although they had so many great ideas, we just can't do it. We can't do it. There's no way. We don't have the culture. It's not going to happen. We're not Japan. And that was the mentality that I carried for the next month. So we're a month later. Now we're in June, and I'm off traveling again with Mazak. This time, we're heading to Europe on an automation tour that starts in Germany. So I arrive in Europe, and I'm thinking, I don't really know what to expect. I know whatever I learn here is probably more applicable to what I'm doing than what Japan was. So we started to tour businesses there that had automation cells that Mazak was running with their lasers. And what we started to see was lean manufacturing again. This time around, I had a different mindset. I was like, wait a minute. They're doing the same thing that Japan's doing here. How are they pulling it off? So company by company, we went in, we saw their operations, they showed us around, we took a lot of pictures, and it was awesome because what I was seeing was lean manufacturing being done by a Western country. We traveled from Germany to Belgium, then to the Netherlands, and every place we went had some fashion of lean being used. I still didn't know what it was, but I thought it was cool, and I knew that that was the direction I wanted to take my company. I just didn't know how to get there. So now I'm back home, and I'm starting to think more positively of my time in Japan and how I could possibly implement this into my business. While I was gallivanting around the world, all the grass and all the plants were starting to grow in Michigan because it was springtime. So when I returned from Europe, I had to get a lot of chores done. So normally I would listen to like a Formula One podcast because I'm a big fan of Formula One. But for some reason on this Saturday, I thought, you know what? I'm going to try to find something different. I started to search Spotify and I came across a Lean Made Simple episode with Ryan Tierney where it was titled "A Executive Roasts My Factory." Now you had my attention. I'm going to listen to this. So I popped my headphones in, started working on my chores, and my mind was blown. At that point, things were starting to click. It was like pieces coming together from my trip to Japan, from my trip to Europe, to this podcast. All of it was starting to come together and starting to assemble into what I was starting to understand as lean manufacturing. But my aha moment didn't stop there. After I was done with all my chores, I decided that I probably should go for a long walk, maybe a really long walk. So I kept listening. And another Lean Made Simple podcast, this one with the guest Tom Hughes of Gembadocs, talking about standard work. Now, in my entire life, I've never heard of standard work. I had no clue what standard work was. And this was the first time that I've heard about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is wild. And Tom went on to talk about how easy it was to implement and how easy it was to use and how easy it was to go forward. Also, as I listened to more and more of these podcasts, they all started to talk about the same thing. You need to get into Paul Akers' book, 2-Second Lean. So I found the audiobook, popped it in, and spent my entire Sunday cleaning the house and listening to Paul Akers and 2-Second Lean. There's a reason why everybody tells you to begin with 2-Second Lean. It is the most comprehensive way to build a culture of continuous improvement. And all the things that I was seeing in Japan and what I was seeing at home, this tells you how to bring it together and create that continuous improvement culture here in the United States. So when I was thinking, there's no way we can do this, Paul Akers is showing you the way to be able to do this and do it well. I start firing off all these text messages to everybody in my leadership team. And I'm like, guys, this is what I saw in Japan, and this is how we're going to do it. Here's 2-Second Lean. Listen to this. Here's Ryan Tierney's Lean Made Simple. Listen to these. Here's Gembadocs. Check this out. Let's go. During that time, we had created enough interest and pull that we had employees throughout the entire business asking, hey, what you're working on right there, can we start doing that? So I was like, okay, guys, I think it's time. We need to roll this out officially. So we got a meeting board and we started our first morning meeting where I said, hey guys, this is what I saw in Japan and this is what I want to do with this business. What do you think? To my surprise, there were so many people in my business that wanted to do this. And I can understand now, looking back, dealing with all the burden that they had in their life and this idea of this transformation to where life is easier and work is easier and your boss listens and you get input. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty good recipe. So we all drank from the lean Kool-Aid and here we are today, a better business, a leaner business with better processes and better people. They put me on the right path to transform my business forever and in return, change the life for the people that work here. So thank you, Mazak, for giving me the opportunity to travel to Japan as well as to Europe. So that's my lean origin story. Thank you so much for coming along and listening in. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll continue to make more content, and I will see you guys on the next show.